What if the clothes you wear, the sheets you sleep on, or even the socks on your feet could actively improve your circulation and support your body's natural healing processes? Welcome back to Exploring Ways to Wellness. I'm Sarah, and today we're exploring something completely different. Infrared technology embedded into everyday textiles. I'm chatting with Seth from Celliant about how invisible light wavelengths can be harnessed through fabrics to improve circulation, support recovery, and help you sleep better. It sounds like science fiction, but the science is actually fascinating. We explore how it works, why it matters, and what it could mean for everything from sports performance to simply getting a good night's sleep. Whether you're skeptical about wellness technology, curious about the science behind circulation and recovery, or simply wondering if your socks could actually be doing more than just keeping your feet warm, this conversation offers a refreshingly different perspective. Let's dive in. I have a very special guest with me this week who's going to be talking about something that we've not touched on before. So today we have Seth, and he's from Celliant, and he's going to be talking to us about infrared technologies. So I'm really looking forward to this one. Welcome, Seth.
Thank you, Sarah. It's a pleasure to be here. Excited to share this journey with your audience.
Fantastic. I guess the obvious place to start is, what on earth are these infrared technologies that we're going to be talking about today, and how did you come across them?
Yes, well, let me tackle the second one first, because what infrared is, how we understand it, can really take a lot of forms in terms of how we explain it.
Yeah.
And so, if I start with my journey, I was really an amateur athlete growing up. I love sports. I love to get out there and be part of a team, but I wasn't very good at it. And so it was, a mixed bag in terms of having a lot of fun, but not seeing the success that you might like. But during that, that journey, I really got interested in what are all the different ways to improve, right? And how can I get better? And so, there's some of the obvious things about your diet, about your sleep, about how you work out, how much time, you spend practicing. And then I met someone named David Hornick, and he was looking at ways to improve blood flow and circulation naturally. And that was really interesting to me because I had had some injuries. And it's not really until you get injured that you learn just how important circulation is. We kind of tend to take it for granted in a lot of senses. And then I went down this rabbit hole about learning about circulation and how to improve circulation. I started using saunas, and then I found infrared saunas. And then when I met David, he was working on a way to develop and deliver infrared through textiles. Like the shirt I have on now is filled with millions of micron-sized infrared emitting minerals. And so we started this journey about 25 years ago, embedding minerals into textiles to then make everyday products.
Wow, fantastic. So you came from that sort of sports area and having an injury, and that's how you discovered it. Do you mind sharing what injury it was that you had, and then how the technology worked to help you with that?
Yeah, absolutely. We can kind of get into what infrared is, and it's really actually pretty interesting when you start to break it down. I had a shoulder injury from high school, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And because I wasn't a professional athlete, the doctors pretty much said, as long as you can live with it, it's better always not to have surgery. And so I just kind of made do. And then it just started to get progressively worse to the point where while I was asleep, my shoulder would dislocate out of the socket, and I would wake up with my shoulder like partially dislocated. And so it just got to a point where it really didn't make sense anymore to just keep trying to live with it. So I had what's called a Bristow procedure, where they put a cleat in your shoulder and kind of anchor that tendon, because the tendon isn't holding the bone in the socket. And so after that surgery, I really created a Celliant fiber like pillow for my shoulder and a wrap, and used an ace bandage and just filled it with our fiber. And it was really wild. You could actually feel the circulation. Like I could feel my heartbeat in my shoulder, like pulsating in my shoulder. And then as I would check in with the doctor, I was always on the very front end of the expected recovery time. So, at 6 to 8 weeks, you're supposed to be, at a certain point. I was kind of there at like 5 to 6 weeks. And so I really started to have my own personal experience with it. And then that just led me deeper into the science. And
Mhm.
the science of infrared, it's just not something we're really taught in school. And so it's not something that we're really familiar with, but it's been around for, as long as the earth has been here. And basically what we're looking at is light that's just beyond visible.
Mhm.
And, typically we tend to think, what we can see is all that's there, right? That's just kind of normal how we're wired. If we can't see it, it's not there. And
Yeah.
it kind of makes sense if you said that to somebody. Well, of course, if I can't see it, it's not there. But then when you give some context and you talk about the spectrum of light waves, you talk about like ultraviolet light that can burn your skin, right? That's the very short wavelength of light. That's why you put on sunblock. You obviously can't see that. You just feel it happening. And then when you talk about the visible light, we've all seen a rainbow, and those are kind of the spectrum of colors. And there's really millions of colors that we can see, but even billions and billions more beyond what we can see. And so that's where you get into near and mid and far infrared light and longer wavelengths of light. And what I share with people is like, if you think about night vision goggles or military goggles where you can see the thermal image of a person, that's our infrared signature. And
Yeah.
so when you start looking at those wavelengths of light, near, mid, and far infrared, they have a benefit on the body.
That's incredible. I guess it's a bit like when people think about sound and radio and things, isn't it? You can't see the radio signals. You just need to have something that means you can tune into them, and then you're aware that they're there.
That's a
Uh,
great example, and I love that. And to build on that, like a dog whistle, right? We don't hear
yeah.
that. It's outside our frequency of sound, but a dog's ear can pick that up, and that's like an emergency alert, right? Like that's a full-blown loud noise that we wouldn't detect at all. And there are so many other things. Gravity is another thing that we know is there, and we can feel its effects. And then we understand some things are there, but they're just microscopic. When you talk about bacteria or viruses, those are things that we know are there, but we can't see them. So there's, a process of sort of educating ourselves about the benefits, and there's things that can also harm us, like mold, spores, and toxins that are in the air. But then there's also things that can help us, and infrared light is one of those.
Yeah, so that's amazing that you were able to harness that. So it's a fabric, it's something in a fabric that you use to harness it to benefit.
Yeah, and the way it works is that our bodies, like while we're here talking during the show, we're giving off about 100 watts of energy every second. That's continuous, and that's
Wow.
part of the metabolic process. And you can measure that. There's different ways to measure that. And so that energy dissipates into the environment. And what Celliant does is we've embedded minerals like quartz and silica. They absorb heat, and then they convert heat to infrared. So they turn heat into light, and they emit that infrared light out back into the environment, back into our body. And that process happens really thousands of times a second. And so you have this continual transformation of heat to light. And these minerals, they're about 1 micron in diameter, which is about 1/100th the thickness of our hair. So to give you an idea of the scale.
Yeah.
And the materials like the viscose, so even natural fibers, obviously polyester, nylon, the ones that are used in sports performance, they all start out as a liquid. And so we add the minerals in, and then it turns into a fiber and then a fabric, and then you make it into a garment or whatever your finished goods are. And then it automatically starts absorbing the heat from the body and ambient heat and turning that into light, which then boosts circulation and blood flow.
Incredible. I mean, so those that are listening rather than watching the episode today, the top that you have on, it looks like just a normal sports top. It doesn't look like a strange fabric or something like that. It's something you'd be comfortable in exercising in, or on a normal everyday, you would be happy to be wearing that. I wasn't aware that that's how that sort of material was created, and therefore you could add something in that way.
Yeah, and until I got involved in this, it never really occurred to me either. You think of your grandma knitting, making crochet, and that's kind of what we think about yarn. But even when you're making performance clothing, that yarn starts out as really as like a pellet, and then it's extruded and comes out like spaghetti out of a spinneret, and then it gets wrapped around a bobbin, and then it gets, made into fabrics. And to your point, our first iterations were really awful, and it was very spongy and scratchy, and it took a lot of work and refinement to get the minerals small enough to get them spaced out properly so they don't clump together, and to get the hand and feel where you wouldn't be able to notice a difference. And that's where we are today, and what we're able to make for the consumer is basically something that they would have no idea is embedded into the textiles they're using.
Yeah, fantastic. And is it primarily textiles that are for the sports arena, or are they embedded in other things?
Well, what's great, the infrared, when it goes into the body, improves circulation and blood flow. And if you're looking at sports applications, that's great for improving strength, improving endurance, improving stamina. But for people that maybe aren't athletes, or people that are, working in the office and don't necessarily strive to have those kinds of improvements, it helps with recovery and it helps with sleep. And so really when we're sleeping, that's our longest like bulk period where we're in one place, and putting Celliant in pillows and sheets and duvets and comforters is really, I think, one of the best applications, and allows people to get a more restful night's sleep. It helps promote restful sleep. And when we're
And we all need that, right?
yeah, absolutely. And when we go to sleep, sometimes we're too hot, we're too cold. So when you increase circulation, that helps with thermoregulation, which helps you maintain the optimum temperature. So really, our homeostasis is based on having good circulation and good thermoregulation. And so we support that function of the body.
Okay. So it doesn't actually heat you up more. So if you're a hot sleeper, you'd still be fine with something like that.
Absolutely, and that's a great point you make, because some people actually feel cooling as the heat is pulled away from the body. But if you run cold, increasing circulation helps warm you. And just like you mentioned, if you're hot, increasing circulation helps cool you. So that's how the body regulates its temperature. So it really helps bring the body into balance. Whatever direction the body's trying to go, it'll assist that direction. And to your earlier question, so you can really apply it to anything. The furniture that you sit on, the seating material in your car or public transportation or planes, the applications are really just about limitless, and any type of fiber can have this technology embedded into it.
It feels like it's quite early on in the journey of how this can really be applied to many different things.
I think, it's hard. I cringe a little when you say early, because I've been doing it for 25 years. But from the other standpoint, it's like really we're at day one, because the awareness is very limited. The people, the customers that we have, in a lot of cases, they're buying from brand partners. They don't even know that they've bought this technology. And so I think the opportunity is certainly in front of us from that standpoint. And sort of the sky's the limit in terms of all the people that we can work with and all the products that we can bring into having Celliant.
Yeah. I mean, I guess in this day and age, that's the easiest way through, isn't it, for awareness, to have these brand tie-ins or tie-ins with personalities that can show that they're using it and show its application, and people trust them already. But you have got research being done in the background as well, haven't you?
Yes, we have 10 or 11 published studies now, depending on how you count. Some of our brand partners have done their own studies, but we have 10 of our own, and that really is key for some of the larger companies. You have such a wide spectrum of consumers. Some people, if a friend recommends it or they're curious, they're just going to try it and see for themselves. Other people don't want to use something unless they can, cross all the T's and dot all the I's and really satisfy themselves on the science. And I think now we're in a place where the biohacking and longevity space is really growing, and Western doctors, traditional Western medicine, is now much more open at looking at some of the newer sciences and how aging and longevity can be, affected. And infrared's a big part of that now. And I think infrared is becoming more and more firmly established. And so that certainly helps us. And, for brands that are looking to work with us, they certainly want to be satisfied that, the science is validated. And so in the European Union and in the UK, we're a class 1 medical device. And in the FDA in the United States is determined we're a medical device and general wellness product. So we really have invested in the science and the clinical trials to help explain and validate how the technology works.
Fantastic. I love how it's the two sides of it, that you can use it as an application if you have an injury to recover, if you like. But there's also clearly from the materials that you're putting it in, there's the ability to improve your wellness on a daily basis.
Yeah, and that's what's great. Going back to what we said at the top, we understand like our diet and our sleep and, how much exercise we get are all going to play significant factors in our overall quality of life. And then this is something that you can use to supplement that. And it doesn't require any change to your routine. Sometimes, trying to get that extra hour of sleep or trying to change the diet, or there just isn't enough time in the day to stop and go for a walk or exercise. But this is something where you can just lay it over your existing, overwhelmed schedule, and it's going to start helping you. And so I think that's a really great benefit.
Definitely. I mean, we're all so busy, aren't we? We've got all this overwhelmed by demands on our attention and what we're doing during the day. So anything that we can weave in to our schedules already, then that's perfect. So what would you say to people who are skeptical of infrared? Okay, as you say, I can't see it. I'm not sure I can feel it. I don't know that anything's happening. Do you have some way that people can assess whether it's making a difference to them?
Well, I always suggest for people to try it if they're looking for validation. There are, when we go to trade shows, we like to give an in-person sort of visual demonstration. And so there's a device called a dynamometer that measures grip strength. And you can get it on Amazon for, less than 20 pounds, I think, sterling. It's not an incredibly expensive device. And it's basically designed to measure your grip strength. If you have a wrist injury, you can track your improvement if you're in physical therapy. And we will measure somebody's grip strength, give them a couple of times to make sure they got their best value. And then we put a Celliant wristband over their wrist, and then we'll talk to them or tell them to come back in 15 or 20 minutes. And then we retest them. And you could see about an 8 to 10% increase in their grip strength just after 15 minutes. Yeah, we have two papers published on increasing grip strength, and now grip strength's tied to longevity. So that's obviously a key marker for health and wellness. And so that's a way to get a visual. Another way is with an infrared camera. A lot of the phones now have an infrared filter that you can put on, and you can look at a Celliant product and a non-Celliant product. And the Celliant one, you'll see that it will radiate. It'll be stronger in the infrared wavelength. That's a fun way to demonstrate the infrared light coming off of the product.
That's so interesting. Is there more Celliant technology going into the medical arena as well, or is this more consumer?
I think on the long term, our vision was really to help some of these medical conditions. Diabetes is the largest disease in the world, and in the United States, there's an amputation every 30 seconds because of poor circulation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's incredible. We don't really realize how many people are affected. And I think long term, with more testing and more validation, if we had some larger partners in that space too, because that testing is very expensive and takes a very long time. So
Mm.
Right now, we're focused on healthy people that maybe have minor aches and joint pain, or just looking to improve things that don't require that type of intervention. But when you look at the benefits of increasing circulation, anyone with just about any type of illness or condition will benefit from an increase in circulation.
Yeah, I mean, it does occur to me maybe elderly patients as well would. So
Yeah,
automatically we think of I guess the age of people who have more disposable income. But is that the thing? You end up with the technology that you like, well, this has such a wide application. Where do I focus?
that's been a real challenge too, right? And what is the right audience? And what's the right message for that audience? Because even like a pillow, you might have, somebody going off to university and they're buying their first pillow they've ever purchased, or you might have somebody in a retirement home, or getting on in life that just decides they want a new pillow. And the messaging and the story is very different for those audiences. So even in a product category, you have to be able to speak to multiple different groups of people, and that's certainly been a challenge as well.
Yeah. Are you finding as a result, and with the increased awareness, then there's more competitors are coming in to fill other areas, or you're not really feeling that at the moment?
I think as we have more and more success, that will beget more and more competition. And I think right now, we feel very good that we're the leader in this space, and that brands, when they do their homework, they see that we have a very robust science and have really spent the time validating our claims and what we can say. And I'm sure that, as time goes on, more and more people will develop products like this, which I think is actually a good thing. I mean, it's a very big world, and there's a lot of opportunity for this technology.
Well, that's it. It comes across your passion for it. So I guess you would like the technology to be used to benefit as many people as possible. Obviously, you get to choose how you take that through. But it's definitely an area I hadn't even considered before, but it's really fascinating how you can harness something that exists, using the technology to really have these different ways it can really benefit your wellness. So that's really interesting. And you've got a website, haven't you? I will put the links in the show notes for people to find you, be able to follow you and your developing wealth of resources that people can find out more information. Do you have sales direct through your website?
Yeah, I would love for anyone in your audience that wants to learn more, you can reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. And then also, our shop Celliant website has products that they might be interested in trying, and love to share that. And to your point, they're really, I mean, that really is my vision. And I tell people, like, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. But to me, it seems inevitable that all materials would harness this technology in one way or another, because it just improves us overall, and it doesn't require any extra effort. And so as that becomes more and more clear, I think it'll be sought out and used more widely.
Yeah. And the more and more it's used, I guess the more and more you get people telling you about their stories of how it's helped them. Have any
Uh,
really stuck out to you and made you like really go, yes, this is it. This is why we're doing this.
exactly. I mean, there's definitely been a lot of challenges along the way, but every time somebody reaches out and says, "Wow, this is incredible," that really validates what we're doing. And we go to trade shows, some of them the same show every year, and we hand out socks, and we'll give socks to some of the organizers and the people that set up and tear down the booths that work, and live locally there. And we'll go back the next year, and they'll come up to us and show us they're still wearing their socks, and can they get more socks. And so
Amazing.
that's great. And we're happy. The socks are a great application because our feet are sore. We're on our feet a lot. We know how our feet feel. And you try the socks and your feet feel wonderful, and they stay dry, and there's no odor, and you go, wow, like, this is really great.
Okay. Well, immediately with two teenage boys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I
that,
mean,
and that
we don't look after our feet enough, do we? When you think how essential they are to us moving around, and we're on our feet a lot and don't look after them enough. So fantastic to see there's already an application there that can benefit that blood flow.
Yeah, and what's great is because they absorb the heat, the feet stay dry, they don't sweat, which prevents the moisture, which is what allows the bacteria and the odor to grow. So that's kind of how it's all linked together.
Amazing. Straight away, I'm like, that it almost feels too good to be true. Do you know what I mean? Like,
You
listening
get
to
that a
this,
lot.
yeah.
Yeah, the better it is, the more skepticism that people have.
Yeah, well, and that's it, isn't it? It's one of those, you just have to give these things a go sometimes to really realize what a benefit, what a change they can make to you. And often when you do come across them, then you're like, why I could have been doing this for years.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just a small change. It doesn't, we think, oh, it has to be a big change to make a big difference. But, small changes can make big differences too.
Yeah. And we do need to invest in ourselves more, don't we? It's all right to think of things as a luxury, but actually, if you can invest in something that ends up having a long-term beneficial effect on your health as well as the way that you look, then yeah, all the better.
So we do basically all different types of apparel through our partner brands. And if any of your listeners just Google or search Celliant, they can see all the different partnerships we have, all the top of bed products. We also actually partner with brands that make beds, mattresses, and the benefits really all are tied to increasing circulation and blood flow. So helping with thermoregulation, helping maintain optimum comfort and body temperature. And then that circulation helps on the performance side, like we talked about, and then the recovery and helping with restful sleep. We work with brands that do kinesiology tape, that do wraps and braces. We talked about socks, clothing, bedding. We have a company coming out with sleeping bags soon.
Oh, that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, and we're talking to some car manufacturers and different airlines as well. So I think that'll be kind of the next few places. And then, there's even applications in skincare and beauty products and even with agriculture, because plants also benefit from infrared. So it's a very wide field.
You sound like a busy man.
Yeah, that keeps me busy.
Is there any one area that you would just love to crack? And you're like, this would be my ultimate vision for this technology.
For me, it's just about awareness and recognition. Like you have the Intel Inside campaign. Everyone knows, their computer chip is an Intel, or you have Gore-Tex for the waterproof, breathable. And we just want to become a household name where people understand that their everyday products are embedded with Celliant and our infrared technology.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hoping this will help. Certainly, it's opened my eyes to the technology, and I will be becoming more aware of what my purchases are that could and how they can help my body. I'm looking forward to seeing how awareness rises and how it's applied in more and more areas, so that we can all benefit. And as I say, with the socks, I'm already sold.
Thank you, Sarah. Let's get your boys some socks to try out, and you as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for talking to us today, Seth.
It's just been my pleasure. Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here with your guests today, and I hope everyone enjoys their experience.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Seth. Well, that was genuinely fascinating. I have to admit, when Seth started talking about minerals embedded in fabrics and infrared wavelengths, I wasn't entirely sure where we were going. But the more he explained, the more it made sense. A few things really stayed with me from today's chat. First, the reminder that just because we can't see something doesn't mean it's not there. Infrared light, radio waves, even gravity, there's so much happening around us and within us that we simply can't perceive with our eyes. But our bodies respond to it all the same. I loved Seth's journey from being an amateur athlete dealing with a shoulder injury to discovering infrared saunas and meeting someone who was figuring out how to embed the technology into everyday textiles. That's 25 years of development and refinement to get to something that looks and feels like a normal sports top. but is actually doing something beneficial at a cellular level. The idea that something so simple, minerals absorbing your body's natural heat and converting it back to infrared light, can improve circulation and blood flow is remarkable. And circulation really is at the heart of so much, isn't it? Recovery, thermoregulation, sleep quality, even longevity markers like grip strength. What struck me most was how accessible this is. It's not asking you to change your routine or find extra time in your day. It's just there, working in the background while you sleep, while you exercise, while you go about your day. The kind of wellness support that actually fits into busy, overwhelmed schedules. And I have to say, the sock application sold me immediately. 2 teenage boys in the house, and the idea of socks that keep feet dry, prevent odour and actually support circulation? Sign me up! I also appreciated Seth's honesty about the challenge of awareness. It's such a wide-ranging technology with so many applications, from medical devices to sports performance, to bedding, to potential car seats and aeroplanes. Figuring out how to communicate it clearly and reach the right audiences is ongoing work. If you're curious about Celliant and want to learn more, I've put all Seth's details in the show notes, including his LinkedIn and the Celliant website. You can also just Google Celliant and find all their brand partnerships and the range of products available. Sometimes the most effective wellness tools are the ones we don't even notice working. Thank you to Seth for such a clear, patient explanation of complex science and for sharing his passion for this technology. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and remember, there are many paths to wellness, and sometimes they're hidden in plain sight in the everyday things we already use.